Hey everyone, Simon here from Top Tennis Training, and in this video I want to help you hit a perfect forehand in 5 simple steps. Step number 1, which is having a perfect ready position. Just make sure that the racket head is higher than the grip, because this is going to create that leverage. So leverage is force over the ball. The more force I have over the ball, the more power I can get, the more spin I can get, the more control I can get on that shot. If I don't have much leverage, it's going to be hard for me to generate power. It's going to be hard for me to overcome the power of the oncoming ball, and it's also going to be hard for me to generate the topspin. So I want to have force over the ball, and a great way to have this is by creating that leverage in the racket, the wrist, and the arm. Now notice that the racket is higher than the grip level, because later in the stroke you want to reach a power position similar to this. And once you're set up in this position, a very quick shoulder turn and reaching that power position becomes much easier. If I start with my racket down here, it takes a little bit longer to reach that position. But by starting up here, it's very easy for me to get into that power position. So step number 1, holding the racket head higher than the grip level, like so, in your forehand grip. So step number 2, turn your left shoulder if you're a right-handed player. So my left shoulder is now turning to the oncoming ball or to the net. So that left shoulder, what this will help me is with the racket preparation. If I do nothing with my arm, if I do nothing with my hand, and I just turn my left shoulder now, I already have the racket halfway back. So right from the beginning, I'm already halfway prepared for the stroke. So from the front, it's going to look like this. So that left shoulder's turning. I'm still holding the throat of the racket, and this is going to help keep the right hand relaxed and loose. If I don't hold it, there's going to be a lot of tension in my wrist. So by holding it, it keeps my arm relaxed, keeps my muscles loose, and that's what I want to have. And step number 3 is now reaching a perfect power position. So the power position is where the left hand is across the body. If this was the baseline here, my left hand is now across the body like this. This is creating that great unit turn. It's also coiling the upper body, so my obliques, which are the side abdominal muscles, by coming across with my left hand, I'm now stretching and coiling the upper body to then uncoil when I open up for the stroke. So my left hand's across the body. This can also help with the tracking of the ball. My racket head is still higher than the grip, which is creating that great leverage in the back position here. So you want to have space between the elbow and the torso of the body. So I don't want to be here. I want to have a good space. I'm not taking the racket too far back behind my body's line. Now a lot of the WTA players, they will end up taking the racket further behind the body. So from the front, you end up seeing the racket on the left side of the body here. Now this is because women in general are more flexible, and also they want to hit the ball a little bit harder. Normally they're not as strong as the guy. So to generate that same power, they take the racket further back. And it also changes the swing path. So you hit a flatter ball when you're coming from behind the body. So WTA players tend to hit the ball flatter, whereas the ATP players tend to hit the ball a little bit more with topspin. So what I would recommend is keeping the racket on your right side of the body if you're a right-handed player. So you're keeping the racket out here if you're a right-handed player. So left hand across the body, racket head higher than the grip level. And in that position now, I'm very relaxed. There's no tension in my arm or my wrist. If I was to drop the racket head down here, I would lose that power and that leverage. By having the racket head higher, I now have more space to accelerate the racket, but without taking my racket behind my body's line. And step number 4 is now generating good racket lag on your forehand. So from this position, because the racket head is higher than the grip, I've now set myself up for a very good racket lag. So from here, the coil, uncoil motion starts to happen. And then if I'm relaxed and very loose with my wrist and with my arm, I should reach a position similar to this, where the bottom of the racket is now pointing to the oncoming ball. Some with more extended arms, like Federer, he has a lot of space between the racket head and the body. Some players are more tucked in with the racket a little bit closer to the body with the double bend in the elbow and the wrist. Either way, they're still reaching that position where the bottom of the racket is pointing to the oncoming ball, and they have the racket head lagging behind the butt cap of the racket. So to achieve this, we don't want to force it. Now a lot of players, they'll end up going out and trying to force that position. If you constantly force that position, you're putting a lot of stress on your wrist, and you very well may end up with an injury in that wrist. Now you want this racket lag to happen in a natural, relaxed way. You don't want to be forcing it every time you hit a shot. But by starting the swing with your racket head in this position, now you can see my wrist is already kind of cocked back in that starting position. Later in the swing, it's much easier for me to then find the racket lag because my wrist is already slightly back. If I started with my racket level with my hand and I take the racket back like this, and now from here I want to then achieve this position, it's much harder than if I start with my racket head higher and then just allow that racket to just lag behind the grip. So once again, you don't want to force it, you want it to happen naturally, but by having step number 1 and step number 3, which is the perfect power position, you're really setting yourself up for step number 4, the racket lag. Now we want to have a good finish, a good follow through. A common thing that I see a lot of players doing is they'll do everything right in the backswing, and as they make contact, they slow down, or they even stop. So as they make contact, they slow down and they don't finish the swing. Now, there are many different ways to finish. You can finish with your racket above your left shoulder like this. You can finish across the chest. You can finish much lower down by your left hip. You can even do a Nadal finish where you go more like the lasso forehand. Either way, you want to have a good follow through. And the reason we have a good follow through is during the contact zone, if I'm hitting the ball here, from this position to this position, I don't really want to be slowing down. If I'm doing more of a topspin shot, I still don't want to be slowing down during the contact zone. I want to be accelerating through the contact point. If I'm stopping just after the contact point, I'm going to lose the control of the stroke. So by accelerating through, I'm now forced to finish around my body, either up like this or across my left shoulder like this. Now, the other very important reason that we want to have a good follow through, a good finish, is if I constantly stop out here just after contact, imagine the stress that's being placed on my wrist, my elbow and my shoulder. Now, over time, if I constantly do that, I'm going to end up with an injury. Now, by having that good follow through, you're allowing the muscles to relax in a natural way. You don't want to be doing that quick stop here, forcing the racket to stop in an unnatural way. You want the racket to stop by reaching the end of the swing. Once again, step number 1, a good ready position with the racket head higher than the grip level, which is creating that leverage right from the start of the stroke, but also allowing the wrist to cock back slightly. Step number 2, the unit turn, the use of the left hand, the use of the left shoulder to start the preparation for the swing. Step number 3, reaching a good power position. Step number 4, creating that racket lag by allowing it to happen in a relaxed way. Step number 5, having a good follow through wherever that may be. So it may be across the body like so. You might want to do it more traditional, up over the shoulder, or you might want to do it slightly lower.